everybody. It's Chad Roberts from RPGGeek here at Gen Con Online 2020. We're joined as long time we've had you on the stream, Mr. Shane Ivey from Art Green. Shane, how are you?
Hey, I'm all right. Thank you for having me on.
How's life treating you these days?
It's going okay. We picked up another Emmy award last night, which is always fun. So that's a tremendous honor.
Pretty soon you're just going to have a yard sale and just sell off. Oh, here's the old ones.
Well, we're not quite at, say, Green Ronin levels, or Monty Cook, but it's nice to the recognition is definitely sweet.
Recognition for what you do is always a good thing.
Yeah,
so. What did you win for?
There we go.
For last night.
This was for Delta Green, The Labyrinth, and I will show it to you right here. This is our new Delta Green source book, big supplement that we were very happy to mark the official return of John Scott Tynes to writing for Delta Green, because
he's been away for a while, hasn't he?
Oh yeah, in addition to, of course, being a good friend of mine and my partner Dennis's forever and ever. He was the originator of Delta Green back in the early 90s, and ran Pagan Publishing for years and years, and then kind of went off into video games and things that were a little more reliably lucrative to support his family. So it's been a while since he wrote anything really substantial, but he came to us a couple of years ago with this idea, and we said, fantastic, let's do it. So here it is, in hardback. It's shipping worldwide now. We have Kickstarter backers who they've all already gotten it, or it's in the post on the way to their houses. Everybody can order it. Stores can order it from Studio 2, and retailer and distributors can order it from Studio 2 Publishing, and you can get it in PDF. Which we are having a Gen Con special 20% off on Delta Green stuff until tomorrow evening. So if you'd rather get a download, then now's your chance.
So one of the things, Shane, and for some reason I get asked this all the time when I talk about my favorite RPGs, it is always, I have an affinity for Dungeons & Dragons, because that's
sure.
Where you start.
Yeah.
Number 2 is always Delta Green, and number 3 being Fiasco. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So when I hit number 2, I have to stop and I have to explain to people what.
Right.
And I guarantee there are people that are watching us right now that have no idea of what Delta Green is.
Oh yeah, that's all right.
So.
Give us my elevator pitch. Yeah. So Delta Green is a role-playing game of Lovecraftian horror and modern day conspiracy. So you're playing agents or other kinds of investigators who are kind of going on these secret missions with way less support and resources than you wish you had, investigating deadly, lethal, supernatural incursions and stopping them and trying to save lives. So so if you kind of think of, say, the X-Files, right, or Fringe, or even Supernatural, but dial up the kind of bleak cosmicism up to True Detective season 1 levels, and then dial it up a few notches more. That's Delta Green.
It's beautiful as well. So how did this project, and this is me just doing Chad fanboyism. How did this project start? Because there's Dennis, there's you, there's Adam, there's the people that wrote this book, all the people, and there's Ken. How did this project come around in the beginning?
Which one? You mean the Labyrinth, or just Delta Green overall?
Just Delta Green in general.
Oh yeah, as a whole. Sure. So this comes back to John Scott Tynes. Back way before he was married, he was just John Tynes, and he started a Call of Cthulhu fanzine called The Unspeakable Oath. And this is in 1990, I think, was when it started up. And in 1993, the 7th issue of it had a scenario that he wrote called Convergence, which which kind of took what he was doing with it was taking everything that he had known growing up, he had learned growing up in Tennessee from his parents who were actively involved in UFO studies, and and sort of putting that through the prism of Lovecraft and cosmic horror and Call of Cthulhu. So it was a Cthulhu scenario where you played these kind of almost Men in Black style federal agents investigating something that looked like an alien incursion or an alien abduction thing gone super wrong. And in the course of it, you encounter other people who are sort of from a rival organization who are even deadlier and more sinister. But it was an absolutely brutal adventure, but the core idea of it was extremely compelling. I mean, especially to me personally. At the time, I was not only a huge Cthulhu fan and Lovecraft fan, but I mean, I was studying criminal justice in college, right? I was about to go into law school. I had my sights set at that time on working with the FBI. So, so it felt like John had like written an adventure just for me. But the core idea of it was you're sort of these renegade government agents who are sneaking around on their day jobs, investigating terrible horrors and trying to kind of cover them up and keep them secret. And so you have not only the tension of I'm investigating something that's going to possibly kill me or drive me insane, but I also have to do it on the sly, and I have to cover everything up and be really careful not to allow people to see the things that I've seen. So you have all these different layers of tension and secrecy and danger and suspense and senses of sacrifice, right? That I just absolutely fell in love with just from that first taste. And so after that came out, I wasn't the only one, right? Yeah. Obviously, there were tons of people that got that. And about, I don't know, I think 6 months after that adventure came out, the X-Files debuted, right? So there was suddenly this huge surge of interest in spooky UFO stuff. And so you had tons and tons of people that heard about this Delta Green adventure called Convergence and got passionate about it, got interested, and the more they learned, the more they liked. This had been coming off of Pagan Publishing, had done a run of 2 or 3 top-notch Call of Cthulhu campaigns and adventures in the early 90s as well, and had a really solid reputation. So I remember, back in the earliest days, it was really exciting because it kind of went from a magazine, a fanzine adventure, to a real project that began to grow and become more serious. And so in 1997, the first actual book, Delta Green, came out, which was mainly John and Dennis Detwiller and Scott Glancy, with a number of other writers kind of pitching in bits and pieces here and there. And then I came along a few years later, and in the I was working with them as a freelancer and did lots of little things for Pagan Publishing along the way. Then in 2002, Dennis Detwiller and I started our company, Arcstream Publishing, and after a few years, we worked with Pagan and with the rest of the team to sort of relaunch Delta Green projects. So that was the root of it, though, was that one adventure in The Unspeakable Oath. And it just sort of, it seized enough people's imaginations that it wouldn't go anywhere, and everything grew out of that. In fact, yeah. I think I have, if you'll pardon me turning around, I probably have that oath right over here somewhere. Yep, here it is. Issue 7 of The Unspeakable Oath. Yeah,
And I find it fascinating because I've followed it like from the early iterations, like they had the Reagan era, and then you just get to follow it throughout the years, and then with the new edition, with
Right.
this beautiful slipcover here, it covers the modern age. It's just fantastic. It's just I just love it, and now we've got the new book. And what's the new book covering in Labyrinth?
So the Labyrinth is, I have it right here. I wish I had the new Any award I could hang on top of it, but you'll have to take my word for that. So the Labyrinth is a collection of organizations that, as a game master, you can pick and choose from and introduce into your campaign, or build a campaign around one of them, or around a lot of them if you want to get really ambitious. So as your you can you introduce the organization to your agents. It can either be as a group that they have some suspicion of being up to something dangerous, so they investigate them, or it could be an ally who has information or resources that can be useful to your agents. But either way, the idea is that the interaction between your agents representing Delta Green and these other organizations changes both of them. And so every chapter not only gives you details and characters, but it's built specifically to give tips and suggestions on how the organization changes over time as it has more and more exposure to the player characters, and how working with Delta Green or confronting Delta Green as an adversary exposes each of these organizations to things that are potentially even more dangerous and lethal than they were around before.
So if you wanted to if you wanted to evolve like Majestic 12 or something like that, and how that would correlate over time, that's sort of the idea.
It's like that. These are each of the organizations is kind of self-contained, and I mean, some of them are pretty close to just straight up cults, not necessarily Cthulhu mythos cults, with the class, the robes and Azathoth and whatnot, but in terms of being very insular kind of groups that are a little hinky and spooky. And some of them are just like public-facing organizations. One of them is the Center for the Missing Child is one of the organizations that can start off as an ally that's dedicated to finding missing children, but they investigate things that your agents might need to take a hand in, right? There may be an indication that a child has gone missing, and it's because of some really dangerous, horrible, Cthulian monster, right? And your agents investigate that, but there are consequences to your agents bringing these good people into their world, right? And so it's a variety of different organizations that each has a unique feel and theme and tone to it. That you can use to build your campaign.
So it looks like we have a couple of comments from chat, if you're okay with taking a couple of comments from the chat room.
Depending on who it is, sure.
Okay, so Mo from Tabletop Bellhop wants to know, when did Ken Hite come on board?
Oh, a while ago, Ken. So let me think. Back in the early days, like the mid 90s, when the first Delta Green book was being put together, Ken and the Delta Green core team were already running in the same circles and knew each other and were friends. Mm-hmm. Greg Stolze, also in the same circles, put together had an idea for a campaign framework, this sort of extended cult of cults called the Cult of Transcendence, and they had an idea for that being a big source book for Delta Green way back at the very beginning, and I believe he and Ken worked together on the first drafts of that. That project kind of languished for years. the idea of Delta Green and the way it developed, the way its setting developed, kind of veered away from the directions that the Cult of Transcendence project was going. But I think Ken was involved from the very beginning in that. We eventually we eventually published the Cult of Transcendence in a book called Targets of Opportunity that came out in 2010, I think, maybe 2012. But either way, Ken definitely co-wrote that with Greg Stolze. And it was only shortly after that that we started having our first really serious in-depth talks about building Delta Green as its own standalone role-playing game for the first time. And Ken was in those talks from the very beginning because we all knew him and knew he was a solid, talented writer and knew he was a solid, talented scholar of Lovecraft. And one of the big, there were many, many, many big challenges in sort of transitioning over to a full standalone game. And he was a huge, huge help for that. So he's been around Delta Green off and on for.
Yeah, he even did that
the
book
whole
last
deal.
year, right? The Fall of Delta Green. That was
Yeah,
last year.
exactly, right. So he, and of course, yeah, he's been working for Pelgrane Press for forever and a day now, right? For what, 12, 13 years.
Yeah.
And so he wrote Trail of Cthulhu for Pelgrane and has done a ton of writing for Pelgrane. And yeah, Pelgrane did a license with us to do the Fall of Delta Green using the Trail of Cthulhu engine, and that was Ken's project as well. He wrote that top to bottom, as far as I know. And then they have a follow-on book, a big campaign called The Borellus Connection that Ken was the initial developer on, and then Gareth Ryder Hanrahan, another stalwart that we all love and admire, came in and did the hard work of fully developing it and finishing it off. So yeah, it's been fun. It's a lot of fun to work with Ken. We worked with him also on the King in Yellow. We did an annotated edition of Chambers.
Yes, that thing's beautiful.
Yeah, Chambers, The King in Yellow, Chambers' book of short stories that inspired the Carcosa mythos. And so we got Ken on board to annotate that. And so the whole book is full of marginalia where Ken went in and just did deep, deep research that was so fun to read about the ideas that inspired Chambers in each of his stories. And so Ken goes way back with us. No, we've still got some. I don't remember the exact number that are still in the warehouse. I think it's maybe 100 and something. I think it's less than 200 copies we have in hardback still in the warehouse.
Yeah.
So my next step is to find the time to put together a real plan for like a larger edition whether in paperback or a less fancy and expensive hardback or what.
We got another question here from MIBDG. These people may have come from the DG forum that you had
Probably,
earlier.
yeah. No. Mid DG is Ken Scroggins. So,
okay.
I know him well. Sorry to out you to the world, Ken.
It says Center for the Missing Child from Labyrinth absolutely needs a big role in Sentinels of Twilight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it came a couple of years later, unfortunately, so we'd have to sort of reverse retro engineer them together. But the slipcase set for Delta Green, the role-playing game, has an adventure in the back of the Handler's Guide, the Game Master's Guide, called Sentinels of Twilight, which if you have the Labyrinth as well in hand, you could easily combine the threads of those and use Sentinels of Twilight to spin off a much larger Center for the Missing Child campaign, or vice versa. Use the Center for the Missing Child as your lead-in to the events in Sentinels of Twilight, which features a young child not disappearing but reappearing after having been missing for 30 years.
All righty. It looks like everything. So we'll go ahead and wrap up, Shane.
Okay.
So for those who have been watching and they are peaked and they are not fully aware, where is the best resources to go to find out more about where to get the books, where to find out more?
Oh yeah, we're all over the place. So deltagreen.com is the long-standing Delta Green homepage, and arcdream.com, ARC dream.com is the is our overall publisher webpage. But you can find us on Twitter and Reddit, Instagram, and Facebook, and I don't think we're doing anything on TikTok, I'm afraid, but
that's your plan for next year. And
maybe,
then the
yeah.
Labyrinth,
Little one minute micro LARPs for Delta Green.
Yeah, there you go. 1 minute LARPs. And in the Labyrinth, you said shipping to Kickstarter backers now?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's shipping worldwide. So you can go to deltagreen.com or arcdream.com, or just go straight to shop.arcdream.com and place an order for the hardback, or go to drive-through and grab it in PDF.
When are they going to be shipping the FLGS?
In this month, it's already August, so August. They've been taking orders for it for a couple of months now.
So they can go to their local store and do a
delivery. If you've got a store that's exactly, and we encourage that for international people as gamers as well, because for our warehouse in Tennessee to ship overseas is monumentally pricey. So if you're outside the U.S., then by all means call your local store and tell them this thing is out there, please get it. And if your store says they can't, then you come tell me, because I'll sort that out.
You'll sort that out. All right, Shane, as always, I appreciate you coming on.
Sure.
You've been a good friend of the show over the years, and I want to thank you for coming.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
And for all of us at RPGGeek, here at Gen Con, and we're wrapping this up for this year. It's a Gen Con Online 2020. My name's Chad, and see you next year. Bye-bye.